So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to lecture number 9 of Geography Environment in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay 2026. Through this lecture series, we will revise the entire syllabus of UPSC Prelims. And yes, you should begin your revision now, because if you want to save yourself from the last minute panic, then you should begin your revision now. And if you begin your revision now, it will only require just 1 hour of your day. That's right. That's absolutely correct. You heard me correctly. You just require 1 hour of your day if you're following this lecture series, and your entire syllabus would be revised. You don't have to look anywhere else for revision. And for both static as well as current affairs. No need for PT 365s, monthly current affairs magazines, nothing doing. Just follow this lecture series for 1 hour every day. That would be all. Provided you are consistent, okay? You follow this lecture series from now till your prelims examination. Now, to get the most benefit of this lecture series, well, you have to follow these 4 steps. These are the 4 conditions. Only then this lecture series will be able to help you out. Number 1, watch this lecture on time every day at 9 p.m. So this is step number 1. Then memorize the lecture from the notes, because if you don't, then whatever you have studied would skip your mind. You will forget it. So memorize it from the notes. Then you will definitely have doubts. We have enrolled you in our WhatsApp groups. Ask your doubts over there. And along with this lecture series, you will get a test series as well with an exhaustive list of tests. Step number 4, be regular with the tests. Now, as far as the lectures are concerned, they would come on YouTube. No worries over there. But for notes, for WhatsApp groups, and for the tests, you have to register on our app or on our website. To do so, just click on the link given in the comment section below. And if you're finding any difficulty with respect to registration, well, a number is also given. Just give us a WhatsApp over there and we will take it forward from there. We will guide you forward. Okay? All right then. Enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into the lecture. Let's begin with today's discussion. And our today's topic of discussion is ethanol blending. You must be familiar with this. Ethanol blending petrol program. Ethanol blended petrol program. Back in 2003, government decided to blend petrol with 20% ethanol, so that every petrol car, not diesel car, will have the fuel with a mix of 20% ethanol, ethyl alcohol, and 80% petrol. Now, it started in 2003 and we slowly and gradually increased the ethanol percentage. Earlier it was 3%, then 10%, and now finally we have achieved this target of 20%. Okay? So therefore, in today's lecture, we will talk about ethanol. Why is it beneficial? Why ethanol blending program is beneficial? And what are the challenges in this ethanol blending program? Because nowadays, people are talking about these challenges. Okay? Some are criticizing the government that because of this ethanol blended program, well, our car performance, vehicle performance has declined. Okay? So we'll talk about all these things. So pay close attention. It is a burning issue. And that is why there is every probability that a question or an MCQ might be asked from this. Okay? So let's begin with ethanol blending program. Okay. So Geography Environment lecture number 9, ethanol blending. Okay. Now remember, ethanol belongs to a category of fuels called biofuels. Okay. Ethanol is just a part of this broader category. Now, what are biofuels? Fuels that are derived from biological resources. Animals, plants, whatever. Fuels that are derived from living resources, biological resources. Now, ethanol is created by fermenting sugarcane. Sugarcane is a crop, it is a plant, living organism, right? Similarly, there are many categories of biofuels, but today we are only going to focus on ethanol, okay? But just remember that it belongs to the category of biofuels, okay? And what are biofuels? Biofuels are those which are derived from biological resources, living resources, okay? So now let's talk about ethanol. So what is ethanol? Also known as ethyl alcohol. Ethanol is the same alcohol that people drink in beverages, okay? But it has another purpose. It can be used as a fuel for vehicles, okay? Now, ethanol is a renewable biofuel primarily produced from plant material like corn, sugarcane, rice, and other biomass, okay? Now, it is a renewable biofuel. Why is it called renewable? Well, it is renewable because it will never get finished. When this biofuel is going to get finished, you will grow another set of crops and then create ethanol from it. Because it is produced from crops that can be grown repeatedly. So in a sense, it's renewable. Okay. Then it is cleaner. Because when you burn petrol, it emits a lot of greenhouse gases. But when you burn ethanol, well, the amount of greenhouse gases released is very less. So it is cleaner. Plus, when you burn petrol and diesel, Well, it emits other gases also, which cause air pollution. And air pollution is a huge problem in North India these days. So burning ethanol would reduce that air pollution also. So it is cleaner, reduced emissions of greenhouse gases and pollutants such as carbon monoxide, sulfur oxides, and nitrogen oxide. Plus, it has a positive energy balance. What do you mean by that? Well, meaning it produces more energy than is consumed in its production. The amount of energy that is consumed in producing ethanol, well, is less than the amount of energy produced after burning ethanol. So it has a positive energy balance. Plus, it has another advantage over petrol and diesel, and that is called octane number. Ethanol has a higher octane number. Now, what do you mean by octane number? Let's talk about this. Okay, this is another advantage of ethanol. Okay, higher octane number. Now, what is octane number? Pay close attention. Octane number measures a fuel's resistance to knocking or auto ignition during combustion in an engine. Okay, you see, when you start your car, well, the fuel inside your car gets ignited. And how does it get ignited? Well, intense heat and pressure is given to it. Okay, but it has to ignite at the right time. But sometimes your fuel has a tendency of pre-ignition. Okay, igniting beforehand. Okay, like for example, you wanted it to ignite at this particular moment by increasing heat and pressure. But in that heat and pressure, it ignited 2 seconds before that. 2 seconds before the right time for ignition. It can happen. Okay, when this happens, then your engine goes through knocking, which really destroys the power of your engine. It really hampers your engine. Okay, so this knocking happens if there is pre-ignition. Okay, now some of you don't understand what is knocking or can't visualize what knocking is. Just know this, that when knocking happens in your engine gets destroyed little by little. Okay, now listen to me very carefully. If your fuel's octane number is high, then there is less chance of pre-ignition. If octane number is high, that fuel is more stable and there is very less chance of pre-ignition. If octane number is low, then there is every chance of pre-ignition. It is not that stable and can cause knocking. Okay, so this is octane number. Now this number is between 0 to 100 generally. And what is the benefit of higher octane number? Higher octane numbers mean the fuel is more stable and less likely to pre-ignite, which is beneficial for high compression engines, internal combustion engines. Okay, now remember this fact. Ethanol has a significantly higher octane number than petrol and diesel. So if you'll mix a little bit of ethanol with petrol, your octane number would increase. Okay, the mixture will have a higher octane number, improving the performance of your engine. This is another advantage of mixing ethanol with petrol. Simple. Now, benefits of using ethanol as a fuel for cars. Okay, benefits of using biofuels. Okay, well, it reduces reliance on imported oil. Yes, most of our crude oil requirements comes through imports. We import a lot of crude oil, but we can produce ethanol in India only. So if we are using more ethanol and reducing our consumption of petrol, well, this would reduce our import burden. Yes, then it will also support agricultural income because ethanol is created from crops or crop residue, sugarcane, corn, maize. Now, if there is high demand for ethanol, there will be high demand for these crops. Farmers are going to benefit. Yes, then it has a carbon neutral cycle. What do you mean by carbon neutral cycle? Okay, well, these plants, let's suppose we are talking about sugarcane. Okay, sugarcane through photosynthesis absorbs carbon dioxide from the air, atmosphere. Okay, and then this sugarcane is converted into ethanol. This carbon is in ethanol. When you burn ethanol, then this CO2 is released into the atmosphere. So the amount of CO2 taken is the same amount of CO2 returned. So we are not adding extra CO2 into the atmosphere. The amount we are taking, we are returning it by burning ethanol. So we say it is actually carbon neutral. And it does not emit that many nitrous oxides, sulfur oxides, particulate matter. So air pollution is also reduced. Okay, so these are the benefits. And because of these benefits, government following Brazil, because Brazil started with this, following Brazil, government launched ethanol blending program. Okay, following Brazil, ethanol blending program. So we are not replacing petrol with ethanol, we are just mixing 20% ethanol and 80% petrol, so that we are reducing the demand for petrol and increasing the demand for ethanol, because ethanol has these benefits. Okay. Now, before talking about ethanol blending program, well, I told you that ethanol is a category of biofuels, right? Now, based on how biofuels are produced, well, biofuels are also of different categories. First generation biofuels, second generation, third generation, fourth generation. Like iPhone is of generation, right? iPhone initially was of generations, 11, 12, iPhone 16 Pro Max, right? Similarly, biofuels also have generations, like mobile phones or mobile connectivity, 4G, 5G, 6G. Similarly, biofuels also have generations. First generation biofuels, second generation, third generation, fourth generation. Okay, so let's talk about the generation of these biofuels. And these generations are decided based on how we produce biofuels. Okay, so different generations of biofuels. This is extra information that I'm giving you, but I'm adding this extra information because I think there is a high probability they might ask an MCQ from this. Okay, so different generations of biofuels. Okay, so first let's talk about first generation. Okay, first generation biofuels are those biofuels which are produced from edible food crops, such as sugarcane, corn, wheat, vegetable oils. Okay, vegetable oils are produced from mustard, coconut, all these, and animal fats. So basically, you have to divert some of the food resources to produce first generation biofuels, because these first generation biofuels are made from edible food crops. So you have to divert some of your food supply towards this. Okay. Common examples include bioethanol from sugar, biodiesel from vegetable oils. The advantage is, well, almost every country has mastered this technology of producing first generation biofuels. It requires simple technology. Simple, cheap, cost effective. So this is an advantage. Established technology, compatibility with existing fuel infrastructure. But the problem is, and that is why many people are saying, no matter how simple the technology is, please do not produce first generation biofuels. Why? First of all, food versus fuel debate. Because you see, first generation biofuels are produced by diverting food crops. Don't you think this will create shortage of food? And when there is shortage of food, that means supply of food is less, demand is high. This will also cause food inflation, which will again hurt poor people. Okay, so there is this food versus fuel debate, whether we should prioritize fuel or food. This is a problem. Plus, another problem is that, remember I told you that, well, ethanol is carbon neutral. Okay, but it's exactly not carbon neutral. I'll tell you how. Yes, the CO2 absorbed by sugarcane to produce ethanol, by burning ethanol, we return it back. That is carbon neutral. Clear? But during the farming of sugarcane, we consumed electricity that emitted greenhouse gases. We emitted methane that emitted greenhouse gases. And there were other things that we did during the farming that emitted greenhouse gases. Yes, sugarcane captured some CO2, but for farming, the farming practices emitted a lot of greenhouse gases. So in net terms, well, it is not carbon neutral exactly. Okay, because farming emits a lot of greenhouse gases. So food versus fuel debate, food inflation, and not exactly carbon neutral. So this is the problem with first generation. But most of biofuels produced in India are first generation because the technology is simple. Okay, so what should we do? Well, we can go towards second generation. In second generation, well, it is derived from non-food sources like crop waste, crop residue, like forest residues, woody crops, organic waste material. So second generation biofuels produce fuels utilizing organic waste. Now, organic waste won't cause food versus fuel debate. Okay. So include cellulosic, ethanol, biodiesel from inedible feedstocks. Okay. Advantage: reduces competition with food supply. Big advantage. Enhances sustainability. Why sustainability? Because otherwise you would have dumped this organic waste into landfills. Now you can use it efficiently. Utilizes waste, kind of recycling, right? But what are the challenges? If this is so beneficial, then why aren't people using second generation biofuels? Well, because the technology is complex and expensive. So that is why. Then another thing is third generation biofuels, produced primarily from algae and cyanobacteria and other aquatic biomass. So you use aquatic plants for producing these biofuels. And the best aquatic plants are algae, okay, cyanobacteria, phytoplankton, algal blooms. That algae can be converted into biofuels. So you use water, aquatic plants, aquatic photosynthesis doing plants. Advantage, higher yield per area, not much area is required, especially land area. Rapid growth rates, minimal land and freshwater requirements. But challenges again, technological barriers in large scale cultivation, harvesting, processing, still in developmental phase. The technology is not yet mastered. Okay. Plus, in farming, I told you that it is not that carbon neutral. Farming emits a lot of greenhouse gases, and that is why it is not that carbon neutral. But algae, because it does not emit a lot of greenhouse gases. Growing algae in your pond or your lake, well, it won't emit that many greenhouse gases, and that is why third generation biofuels are closest to carbon neutral so far. Okay, but the technology is very difficult, and that is why almost nobody has mastered this technology. And then there is a step forward. Fourth generation biofuels, okay, involves genetically engineered microorganisms, genetically engineered bacteria or crops to optimize yield and sustainability. When you use biotechnology to produce specialized living organisms to produce biodiesel or ethanol, this is fourth generation. Includes biofuels from engineered algae, cyanobacteria, or using hybrid processes that couple renewable electricity with biofuel synthesis. So you grow these genetically engineered crops using renewable electricity, again being carbon neutral and sometimes even being carbon negative, absorbing more carbon. Okay, this is the benefit. Advantage, potential for carbon neutral or carbon negative, high efficiency, good. But challenges, technology and money, very expensive, because it requires not just advanced engineering technology, it requires biotechnology also for genetic editing. Yes, so it is very expensive, very difficult. And we have not mastered fourth generation. We have mastered second generation, but second generation is also expensive. So most of us rely on first generation because it is simple and cheap. Okay, so remember these four generations of biofuels because a question can be asked. Okay, so study this from your notes. And now let's talk about the showstopper of today's lecture, and that is ethanol blending program. Okay, so under ethanol blending program, government decided to blend petrol with 20% ethanol. That was the eventual goal, but it would be done in a phased manner. Okay, start with 3%, then reach 5%. Okay, then reach 10%, then reach eventually 20%. It was started way back in 2003, and many people thought that it would be very difficult to achieve this. In fact, the government had set itself a target of 2030 to achieve 20% target by 2030. But recently, government announced that we have achieved this target in 2025 only. Okay, so it's a big achievement. So let's talk about this. Okay. So about ethanol blending program, origin. Launched in 2003 to promote blending of ethanol in petrol, India achieved its target of 20% by 2025, like Brazil. Okay. Types. So types of blended petrol. E10 means 10% ethanol. E20, 20% ethanol. And some countries like Brazil are even experimenting with E85, which means 85% ethanol and 15% petrol. That would reduce your petrol demand to, well, it will be at the floor only. Okay, but we are very far from that target. We have reached 20%. Now, National Policy on Biofuels 2018 as amended in 2022 advanced the target of 20% from 2030 to 2025-26. Okay, earlier, remember, I told you the target was 2030. It was advanced to 2025 and we have achieved it. Okay, the use of E20 gives better acceleration, better ride quality, lower carbon emissions by approximately 30% as compared to E10. That's a given. Okay. Now, what is this National Policy on Biofuels, which was amended in 2022 and was created in 2018? So, under National Policy on Biofuels, we made some changes. First of all, what raw material would be used for producing ethanol? Promotes use of sugarcane juice, sugar beet, damaged food grains, rotten tomatoes, unfit for human consumption, so that we can solve for this food versus fuel debate. So for this, National Biofuels Policy was amended where we said we can use organic waste. So go to second generation. Then Well, there is this problem of diverting food towards fuel production. Very big food versus fuel debate. So government said that if you are going to divert food resources towards fuel, divert surplus food grains. Because remember, well, ethanol can be produced from rice also. Okay. So surplus rice is there with the government. So divert that instead of essential rice to be used for ethanol production and blending. An achievement, ethanol production increased from 38 crore liters to 660 crore liters in 2025. We achieved our target in 2025. Earlier, it was 1.5% in 2014, nearly 13-fold increase. So these are some of the achievements. Very simple to understand. Now, what have been the benefits, advantages so far? Okay, because we are blending 20% ethanol with petrol, so our demand for petrol has decreased, our demand for crude oil has decreased. It has given us much needed energy security. Okay, then lesser greenhouse gases are being emitted, climate change mitigation. Plus, to produce ethanol, so many factories have been set up. These factories would add to India's GDP plus also give employment. So economic growth. Then farmers in India, especially in green revolution states, are more inclined towards rice wheat monoculture. But now ethanol can be produced from various other crops, corn, maize, sugarcane, right? And there is high demand for ethanol. So it incentivizes farmers towards crop diversification, which is very important for soil fertility. So this is there. Plus, with less air pollution, health outcomes are better. And it is said that, well, ethanol gives better fuel efficiency. Why? Because of octane number. Remember? Yes? So this is the thing. Okay? Make sense? Now the thing is that government launched ethanol blending program. For that, government had to produce or increase the production of ethanol. Now, to support the increase of production of ethanol, government launched parallel schemes. These parallel schemes are called supportive schemes to support ethanol blending program. So to support ethanol blending program, here are some of the parallel schemes, supportive schemes. PM Jeevan, Jaiv Indhan Vatavaran Anukul Fasal Aveshan Nivaran Yojana for providing financial support to integrated bioethanol projects for setting up second generation, so that food versus fuel debate can be solved. Then ethanol interest subvention. Anyone who wants to open an ethanol production unit can access loans with subsidized interest rates. This is there. Now, ethanol has a GST of 18%, but ethanol for ethanol blending will have a GST of 5%. This cut was done. Okay. Then Amendment to Industries Development and Regulation Act. By the way, remember, ethanol is nothing but alcohol. Therefore, interstate movement of alcohol is highly restricted because we want to restrict movement of alcohol. Okay, there are proper licenses that are checked. But ethanol for consumption in beverages, that should be restricted, but not blending. So government amended this Industries Development and Regulation Act to allow ethanol which will be used for blending to move freely between states. So this was also done. Simple, okay? But here are some of the challenges. Big challenges. People are criticizing this policy, okay? And Brazil successfully implemented this policy, but in India, it hasn't been that successful. And people are saying you should learn something from Brazil, okay? So what are the challenges? Number one, food versus fuel debate. Yes, there are some second generation biofuel units, but most of ethanol that is being produced is first generation. So food versus fuel debate. Biofuel expansion could exacerbate food insecurity, particularly for vulnerable population. This is as per Food and Agricultural Organization's report. Okay. Then water security. Because we are using sugarcane to produce ethanol. Sugarcane is a water guzzling crop. It requires a lot of water. So you are using up a lot of water and water is scarce. So water insecurity. Then tech upgrades. The thing is that blended ethanol requires some modifications in your engines. Okay, otherwise your engine quality will deteriorate. But many vehicles in India do not have upgraded engines. They are putting blended ethanol, blended petrol in their cars, but their engines are not upgraded. That is why these days people are complaining about poor engine performance because they are not using upgraded engines. That was not the case in Brazil. But in India, well, government blended ethanol with petrol, but there was no proper policy to upgrade everyone's engines. And that is why vehicle performance has decreased. Okay. India's vehicle fleet transitioning to E20 and beyond requires modifications in engine design and fuel systems, which may be costly, and that is why many cars are not doing it. Many new models are not doing it. Okay. Performance problems, car performance problems. Ethanol being lower in energy density than petrol, well, it reduces your mileage. People's mileage has declined. Okay. Older engines may struggle with air fuel adjustments on ethanol blends. This is another technical engine problem. Plus, ethanol absorbs a lot of moisture, water vapor, which corrodes your engine. Corrosion in engine happens. So your engine's life declines. This is another problem. So these problems are happening. Okay. And that would be all. With that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. It has added value because this is an important topic. Okay. Revise it and memorize it from your notes. Ask your doubts in the WhatsApp groups. And very soon, there will be a test. Be regular with the test. Be regular with every test of this test series. Follow these 4 conditions and you don't need anything else for your revision of UPSC Prelims 2026. All right then. On that note, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another topic in this lecture series called Prelims Powerplay 2026. Thank you, everyone.